Hello, we're
Hi.
live. We've got
We're
lipstick on and hair done in the front, not in the back,
Yes.
in the front, and and
Welcome to our
we're
live.
going. We're
Yep.
happening. This is it. This is great.
We've got our awesome Jackie pack. We call her our Jackie pack. But we learned something from Amy Poehler's podcast where she likes to talk good behind people's backs. So we wanted to do that for just a second and just brag about a Jackie for just a second. So Michelle, I'll let you kind of lead that.
Jackie is like the Cher of our household. She's just Jackie. Everybody knows if we said Jackie said, it's the law, or Jackie taught us, or Jackie led us, or Jackie says this. So yeah, she's been our therapist for 6 years we're going on, and she's gonna have to kick us out. We're never leaving. We're
I think
never
that's
leaving.
awesome.
It's just
Yeah.
so great to have somebody. I don't have any parents anymore. It's so great to like go in, be able to talk about what you need to talk about, and say, do I need to work on this? What should I do? So it's been so great. So are we ready? Are we ready to bring her on?
Yeah,
Jackie
bring her on.
Pack. Yay, Jackie.
Hi.
Hey, welcome.
Welcome. All right, here's our question, Jackie. This is question number 1. What are all those letters at the end of your name? Tell us about those.
Yeah, so I have my master's degree in social work. So I'm an MSW, Master's of Social Work.
Okay.
Then you have to go through a licensing process. When I was doing it, it was 4,000 hours of supervised work and passing a test. And then you're a licensed clinical social worker, meaning I can do clinical work. I'm licensed to work not under a supervisor. I can work on my own. I can supervise others, and I can do clinical work. Then I'm also a CSAT, which is a certified sex addiction therapist. And then often I'll have a -S, which means I'm a supervisor for people getting their CSAT certification.
Okay. See, now we know. So what's clinical? What do they consider clinical?
Clinical is like therapy versus like medical social work. That's an LMSW.
Okay.
So I did the clinical track, meaning I wanted to do work with clients directly.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. And that brings us to something I wanted to ask was, tell us, you told us early on, there's a difference between therapy and counseling and even coaching. So I liked that. I liked what you said. So tell us about that, because I think we need to understand that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So usually I will say, coaching, a lot of people can do coaching. You can have a lot of different types of coaching: business coaching, life coaching, marriage coaching, ADHD coaching. I have a client who has an ADHD coach. So they're working with things in the present and trying to make it better in the future. So it's usually about what's happening now going forward. A coach is similar. I work with addiction a lot, and there's a lot of addiction coaches out there. Me as a licensed clinical social worker, I have certain code of ethics I need to abide by. And there's some definitions around how my relationship with my client is supposed to work. And that's different from a coach. So if they're working with a coach can call them multiple times a day. They could show up at their house. That's not something you want your therapist doing.
So I do, Jackie. I'm just kidding.
The therapist, kind of could do all of it, but we're also mostly working on past issues, how that shows up in the present, and changes we want to make in the future.
Awesome.
Oh, I really like that. Thank you for teaching us that. So, but you do both of those, right? You do coaching and therapy?
I do. Yeah. I got my certification as a coach. I think it was in 2019. It was either the year before or after COVID. I have that time frame in my head, but it's not always accurate.
Yes.
Okay. And what are you usually coaching about versus your therapy?
Like, I've worked with therapists who want to learn more how to do, I would say I work from a pretty interpersonal approach to therapy.
Okay.
And, that's not always taught in school. And so if they want to learn how to do that type of coaching, I'll work with them on that. I've worked with some CSATs who are learning how to set up a practice around working with sex addiction clients and betrayal trauma clients. And I've been doing that since 2014. So I'll coach them with that. I mostly work with therapists, but I've worked with a few clients as well. I like to say, get into therapy so that I know I'm not crossing lines that
Mm-hmm.
should not be crossing.
Right. But as a coach, you can work over state lines a little differently.
Yeah, but I shouldn't be doing therapy.
Right. You shouldn't be doing therapy.
Okay.
Right. Right. Okay. So, yeah, and I wanted to really, I wanted to make sure we get in because so a few episodes ago on your podcast, the healing path, or I mean, no, what is it? Thanks for sharing podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so good. Thanks for sharing podcast. You had a couple episodes where you really walked through what happens when I think usually it's when there's a sex addiction, but at the time it's kind of like the discovery, and so first I'm going to ask you, like, tell us a little bit about that scenario. And then I just want to add that podcast really walked through just the step-by-step of what's going to happen when that happens. And I thought I talked to you about it. I thought it was so well done and would be such a good resource. And we decided that we were going to send everybody to your YouTube channel to be able to watch that. Because I thought, when that disruption happens, like, what do you do? Where do you go? So yeah. So usually, how do they show up, in your office? What does that look like in this kind of scenario? This is your specialty.
Yeah. So a lot of times we might get one person in and they come in at different times. It's always nice if they're coming in together. And typically when there's a lot we're trying to do when we're working with sex addiction and betrayal trauma and working on healing with both of them and the relationship as well. So both individually and the relationship. So we give each of them their own therapist, usually somebody on our team at Healing Paths. And so the partner has their own therapist, the addict has their own therapist. We're working on different issues with each. And then at some point we're starting some joint sessions. So both therapists and both individuals sit down with the therapist in a session. We're just seeing how do they do in the room together? Can we help regulate them when we're talking about addiction? Because most often the initial conversations about addiction can get escalated very quickly. There's a lot of emotion around the addiction. And so we're trying to have conversations around the addiction that stay somewhat regulated. Then we're working on just communication skills. We're working on boundary skills. I would say that's phase one of the work we're doing. I kind of divide it into 3 phases. There's each some things they need to be doing individually, and that's what we're doing jointly. Phase 2, we're really preparing for a full disclosure. And, those sessions are pretty in-depth. They're pretty long because we're going through and the addict has pre-prepared and had it signed off what they're going to be reading to the partner in that disclosure session. So that can be pretty lengthy sometimes.
You should get paid double those sessions.
Yeah.
That's some hard work. That's some hard.
We've got to take some breaks so that everybody can stay regulated.
Right. That's got to be.
We're trying to stay regulated during the session, but then we've got to, get up, take bathroom breaks, get some drinks, just walk around a little bit and kind of move all of that emotion and energy that's sitting in the room with us. So we have both therapists in there for that. So we do the disclosure, the partner leaves and starts working on the impact letter, the impact of the addiction on the partner. We usually come back, months later, we give the time for the partner to work on that impact letter. Come back in, we're going to do that session with the impact letter. That's also, I would say it's also emotional. It's a heavy session. Most people they report it's not as heavy as the disclosure session for either of them. And then we do a third part, which is the restitution letter. So the addict is making restitution for the damage done. And I often say, you can't really make restitution if your partner hasn't had a chance to tell you what the impact was. You can guess at the impact, but we also want them to have a voice about what the impact was. And then you take that and make restitution. You're making amends to the partner and acknowledging that you've heard the impact of the addiction and, that we're going forward from there. And then I would say, so that's kind of phase 2 is really preparing for that. And then phase 3, that's where we're starting to do just couples work, rebonding, rebuilding trust, learning how to really be vulnerable with each other in ways that deepens intimacy in the relationship, that deepens closeness, emotional closeness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I thought it was just amazing to see that there was a roadmap. Like you have the roadmap, you're going to lead everybody through it. And that, I got from that podcast too, is that on the other side of it, these couples really do amazing things. Like they really do get that intimacy back, or maybe they go their separate ways, but that's even okay. That's a lot better too.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it was very hopeful, where I don't know if that conversation I'd ever heard that conversation of what that's like. You just kind of hear, that part. So, and mostly we're talking about sex addiction that you're working with specifically. And
Can I ask a question? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I know
We had a question come in from Instagram. Sorry. But the question is, how do you distinguish between a sex addiction and a healthy and high sex drive?
Ooh, good question.
I mean, I would say the definition with sex addiction is, it's compulsive. I wouldn't say a high sex drive is compulsive in nature.
Compulsive meaning
you have
kind
to
of
do
uncontrolled.
Uncontrolled. Okay.
It's being driven by underlying issues.
Okay.
And it continues despite negative consequences. There's usually negative consequences that are happening in addiction that isn't happening in a healthy sex drive. So there's negative consequences that are happening, and they're still continuing with the behavior.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So how do you define the sex addiction? What is that definition?
We talk about any type of addiction is an illness of escape. So we're using different neural pathways in the brain for escape, whether that's literally escaping, whether that's numbing behaviors, whether that's, I'll use the example. My dad used to say, if I stub my toe on something, one of the times I broke my toe and I was crying. It hurt. It hurts to stub your toes, right? They're fragile little things.
That's why swear words were invented.
Yes. And so I had hurt my toe, and my dad said, here, let me hit you in the arm, and then your toe won't hurt. So we can see addiction as being that too. It's displacing the pain in a way that feels like I can control it.
Right.
So I can control the pain around this, and I'm escaping the pain over here that I can't control and that I feel powerless over.
Wow. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And I think that's really special that you can hold that place for people, because I think that's, there's a lot of judgment around sex addiction that's even different than other addictions. Would you say?
Yeah, I would say it's one that it's hard for them to acknowledge unless they're in a room with other sex addicts, and then they can acknowledge it there. But there's a lot of stigma and misunderstanding of sex addiction, whether that's joking about it. And, I see this in some of the comments on my YouTube channel, like, oh, I wish I had a sex addiction. We're kind of missing the point. Like this isn't a high sex drive. This isn't, I love sex. Sex is just the means in which they're using. And usually there's some stories in their backstory in their childhood that explain why it's a sex addiction and not a substance addiction.
Fascinating.
Makes a lot of sense. Jackie, so you're a really good expert in sexual addiction, also in attachment, and you've recently done some classes on that. Can you tell us a little bit? I wish I could clone you, because the things I've heard about you and I listen to your podcast, I'm like, gosh, I wish you could be my therapist, but it's probably not going to work. So you have an attachment class to help those people me. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I'm doing more online workshops, and some of them are for my specialty, betrayal trauma or sex addiction, but some are just more general information like attachment. That's not necessarily specific to only sex addiction or betrayal trauma. I think when we look at the numbers, probably 2/3 of people grow up in not a healthy family, and that's going to lead to some insecure attachment. And how do we heal that? Because while it's important to understand your attachment style, it's also not the goal to just stay in that style. We should, as adults, start to earn back secure attachment.
Oh, I love that.
And so that's, a lot of times we're doing that as part of the therapy process. We're trying to help them reestablish what secure attachment looks like for them and how they can operate in that secure attachment. That doesn't mean that they won't sometimes go to their default insecure attachment style.
Right.
But I just tell them, you can have a second response. You can recognize that, and you can have a second response in your secure attachment.
Cool.
So we just put this up on the Wholeness Network classroom. So if you go to wholenessnetwork.com, go to the classroom, then you can purchase Jackie's class. And I'm telling you, it is the best $44 you will ever spend in your life. People should know this from the beginning. I feel like if I had understood attachment stuff, I don't even know how my life would be different, because it's like not having an understanding of our hunger system in our body. Like, honestly, it's like we're trying to shut off this hunger system and fight this hunger system. And this is a part of our body. This is a system in our body that we want to attach to other people. And if that's not developed correctly, then we become malnourished almost, in a way, right? Emotionally. So it's so good. I was lucky enough, I got to do the editing on it. It was so good. I love it. Everyone, I'm telling you, watch the class. You hit every detail. You hit places of understanding, who needs to be close, who needs to be a little bit farther away, who needs to not be close. Even with that kind of thing, you get into, friends and relationships. Attachments are part of our relationships with our bosses and coworkers, with our kids, with our siblings, with our parents, especially with our spouse or our partner. But to understand that is huge. Like, to be able to understand what's going on, what I'm feeling, my insecurity, the stuff that's taking me out a little bit, to understand what that is, versus just, it's like you're just drowning in the water without anywhere to go when you don't understand what's actually happening. Like, this is what's actually happening to you. And it was so good, this class you did. And I'm sure eventually, you'll do another live one, and people will want to do it live, even though but don't wait for the live, like, get it. And then, because Jackie was so good to really work with the people, you won't see the people that in the class, but the people that were there, to be able to work with them and listen to them and support them. It was just healing to even understand that I'm not the crazy, like, oh, that's not crazy. The fact that, I need attachment, and there's nothing wrong with that, or attachment's uncomfortable for me. And there's nothing, that's not something, again, like, we're going to move towards the secure, but like, we got you here. We have the answers. We know what this is. You're not crazy. You're not weird. You're not unusual. Like, this is how it works. It's kind of really hopeful, I think. I feel like.
Yeah, thanks. That was part of my goal. I also think it's interesting because when attachment theory, it was before my lifetime, but when attachment theory came out, it was applied to young kids and teens. Right. And the idea that attachment followed us right into our adult life and our adult relationships really wasn't a foundational knowledge until the 80s, which is so shocking to me sometimes in this field. What was happening in the 80s? I was in high school. I graduated high school in the 80s. I'm like, how did we not know this sooner? Right. But I'm really glad that I learned it when I was entering the field, and we did know that, and we understood that. It's crazy.
And we don't.
So much sense that we never outgrow our need for attachment and the impact early in life on our attachment style and the way we approach relationships.
Yep. Yes.
That's amazing. So, Jackie, if people want access to you in any way, I know you're one person, so it probably probably have a waiting list for your therapy, but if they want access to some of the other offerings, how would they find you?
Yeah, so they can follow me on any of my social media platforms. It's usually under Thanks for Sharing. That's the podcast. Usually it is under Healing Paths to Recovery, which is my group practice. And I put information out there. I'll usually announce it in my podcast too, if I have an upcoming workshop or if I've got something going on. That's how they'll know about it. If they hit subscribe, they'll be notified when new content is available, when I've got an upcoming workshop. I do have one, I will say here. I have one coming up called Beyond Words, and it's for couples who want to know how to go just beyond communication, like I hear what you're saying, but actually knowing what to do with that and going a little bit deeper deeper into vulnerability and deeper in their relationship to really build some intimacy, emotional intimacy there. So that starts in October. I've got some stuff coming out, just ads and a little bit about that, links that will be available so you can learn more about that. I have a free handout for that you can download, whether you come or not, whether you register or not, as well as the registration link.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's really great, because it is like, it's a whole new language to learn how to have these different, like, really intimate conversations, and sometimes that has to come from those harder conversations too. It's not just about making sure you're nice all the time. It's like, we actually need to have those harder conversations, but we don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really
be honest, which
Right.
sometimes being honest doesn't feel like being nice.
Right.
It is. I don't think lying or being dishonest is nice.
Right.
But a lot of people are trained to be nice, and sometimes that gets in the way of honest.
Especially women, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a question that we had. One of the questions was, how do we know if our relationship is healthy versus like a codependent? How do we know?
So one of the quick ways that I describe secure attachment is it's a balancing between autonomy and being our own individual. We should not lose ourselves in relationships. Our who we are as a person can be strengthened in a relationship, and should be, hopefully, but we have autonomy, and we also can balance connection. And those things are pretty evenly balanced. The other attachment styles are usually one or more of the other. Like, we're either too much autonomy, too much of the individual, or too much connection. So that's usually how I explain the attachment style. So secure attachment would say, I can be myself and I can do connection. And so codependency would really be I am more focused on the other and I lose myself. That's an easy way of just talking about what codependent is. Now, I like Pia Melody's definition of how codependency happens. She says, codependency is a condition in adulthood that develops from childhood trauma.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of people. If we're saying 2/3 of us don't come from adaptive, healthy families, that's a lot of people who have that tendency to be codependent, who also can be taught to be codependent. Like, you get that messaging sometimes in the messages you're receiving as you're growing up. So I think it's about knowing who you are and being comfortable being that person, but also knowing how to share that with others. And that when we are giving to another, that's a choice we make. It's not out of obligation. It's not out of duty. It's out of this, like, I can put me aside here and focus on them.
Yeah. Or we're not thinking we have to get their approval, or we just are who we are. Yeah. That's really good.
Thank you. Okay. I want to ask you.
In healthy relationships, sorry, one thing, Shalene.
Yeah.
In healthy relationships, there's a lot of freedom and there's a lot of choice.
Right.
Thank you. I really learned something from that. No, I know. Like, yeah. Okay. I want to just pivot just a little bit, because I would like to get to know you just a tiny bit more and just ask you like a question about you. So really quick, like, what lights you up? What kind of turns you on? And I'm not necessarily talking sexually, but just like what, makes you excited and happy.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you can talk to Jackie about anything.
Sweet.
That's what's nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I think that light me up. So it depends on if I'm talking about, personally. Like, I love listening to music that I fell in love with when I was growing up.
Okay.
I'm very proud of my YouTube algorithm, and it showed me somebody who was falling in love with the music I fell in love with, and I can't get enough of that channel.
Give me some examples. What band? Like what bands?
Oh, a lot of them. Anything, probably 70s and 80s. I mean, that's when I was coming of age. Okay. So I love watching him react to Queen, because I just loved, like, Queen was things that I was like, when I heard those songs on the radio, I was like, I got to sit down. I got to listen to this. I got to turn this up, and I have to sit down and listen to this. And then, try to record it on my own, because that's what we did in the 80s.
Yes. The tape recorder.
So that lights me up. Just, cool. Music, sharing music that I love, seeing others love the music that I love. I would say professionally, I work with couples who are doing a lot of hard work, and individuals who are doing a lot of hard work. And when they start to glimpse the changes that this can have, and understanding of themselves. I will never get tired of that. I love seeing them come alive themselves. And I'm just like, this is a beautiful process.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. It's really hopeful. I tell you, it's really hopeful.
That is hopeful work, because it can be marriage therapy is not always the funnest thing to do.
Especially for the
for me
therapist.
either. Like sometimes as a therapist, I'm like, oh man, this is heavy. This is hard.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about this.
Right. And that's where she goes into it. She dares to go in rather than, well, let's make a 3-point plan of how we're never going to go do that again. Which I think is really like tempting to do. Like, okay, she's never solving a problem.
Yeah.
For us, she's never solving a problem. She's, I think, regulating us most of the time, whether for the first year or two, and then we're learning those things. Like, I mean, to learn how to have one of those conversations that are hard, and to trust that you're going to be the listener at some point, and they're going to be the talker, and it's like a script, but you learn it and it works. It's magical. It works.
I just have another question from Instagram really quick. If someone is struggling with a hidden addiction, what benefits can they expect from getting therapy? Maybe the quick answer.
Yeah, I would say really quickly, if they have a hidden addiction, there's probably a lot of shame that accompanies that because it's secret. And coming into therapy, working with a therapist who is trained to do this, like not every therapist gets training in addiction. They might take a class, which is not training to work in addiction.
Okay.
So I would say just starting to climb out of the shame of addiction is the main benefit, or the first benefit of going to therapy for that. Then there's others, like not feeling alone, not feeling that like something is wrong with you, but we can make sense of it. I often will say all behavior makes sense. And if we can't make sense of it, we just have to keep digging.
I like that. It kind of goes along, and we say it all the time, but like a bore mate, like instead of asking like why the alcohol or why the stuff, like asking like where's the pain. So you're saying you're just digging until you find that. That's awesome. I'm so glad we have Jackies in the world.
I know.
Yeah. I was hearing your introduction. I was like, wow, I wish Jackie's word was law at my house. It's not.
I know. That's why I have to use you, because I don't have it in my house. So I just have to say Jackie. In fact, maybe I'll start making stuff up and say Jackie said you have to.
Yeah. No. Like, we can make you a permission slip. You can take home to your family. We'll let you do that.
That's right. Okay, that's great questions.
Thank you.
All right, really quick. How can we communicate? We talked about before, like we kind of have to be honest. And I think one of those things is what we want, our needs and wants. And you were gracious enough to give us a video that's in the library where they can watch it. But for here, like, how do we start to do that? How do we start to claim or speak our needs and wants, which sounds so simple. And yet, honestly, try it and feel all those uncomfortableness in your body. And you'll know, this is not that, that's not that easy.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I mean, I think there's a difference. I think, for women, like we were talking about, I think a lot of women are conditioned or taught to silence themselves. And so it takes a lot of courage for them to start to speak up, not just to other women.
Right.
Sometimes that's an easier place to start. Although I find even with women's conversations, a lot of times they're holding back. And it takes some courage. It takes trying. You're not going to get it right the first time. If you've been silenced for so long, it's not like you're just going to turn it on and you're going to do it. It's going to feel very uncomfortable. And some of it is learning to be okay being just uncomfortable, and it'll feel uncomfortable. And I get feedback. I ask people, how did that go? Hopefully we're starting with safe people that we are being honest and open about. And just knowing it's a process. I think sometimes for men, I find that they're conditioned, or they get the messages that it is on them to fix everything.
Right.
And if they get honest, they don't want to fix everything.
Right. They don't know how.
And no. And so being able for them to listen to the people in their life, say, I don't know, that's great. Like if, that's honest too. Being able to say, I don't know, or I don't like having to have all the answers. I don't know the answers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Well, thank you so much for being here. We want to make sure people know Healing Paths, and for sure, thanks for sharing podcast. Oh,
Yes.
and our podcast we listened to, episode 157 is our episode we did with Jackie called Healing Paths for Couples. Really, really good. We go into attachment styles there. Really, really, it's really good. And then again, in the library, there's a whole bunch. I think there's 6+ new videos that Jackie has done for us, and they're so good, like so good. So
they are good.
It's free all this week at thewholenessnetwork.com.
Go check those
out. They'll be right at the front at in the new releases, or you're going to find stuff in in the self-love section. You're going to find stuff in the relationship section. Those are great places to find Jackie, or as well as her entire channel, just with all her stuff. You can go to the guides and find her there. So yeah, the Healing Paths recovery is the website, and her YouTube channel, so you get to see most of her podcasts on the YouTube. You can go on the YouTube and watch it now. And so those are really helpful. I'm telling you, you almost get half of your therapy from her podcast.
That's great. That's cheap. That's real cheap.
It's cheap.
And if you've made it this far, thank you. It was such a great conversation, Jackie. And we have a code for you, Jackie Pack, if you want $5.55 off whatever form of membership you would like at the Wholeness Network. So not just this week, but going on, you'll have access to her videos. And I'm guessing you're going to be putting more on the Wholeness Network. So it's a dynamic library. We're going to keep adding to it. So we're not letting her go yet.
Yep. Not letting her go yet. We all get a little piece of Jackie through the library.
Yes.
Anyway, it's been good seeing everybody.
Yeah,
Thanks so much for joining
Thank
us,
you.
Jackie.
Thanks.
And we'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll see you.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.